We're talking about solving quadratic equations by factoring, and I am excited about this week of assignments. And actually, I'm excited about every week, but this week in particular, I was telling my wife, man, I can't wait to get to this stuff because notice we're not graphing in this lesson today. We're going to start graphing tomorrow. And I'm like, she asked me, why are you excited about this? She's thinking in her head, why is he excited about math? Okay, but I told her we're dealing with parabolas, and she's like, oh, are you talking about like the things that do that? I'm like, yep, that's a parabolic motion. And I was like, yeah, I'm really excited about it. But I'm so excited about graphing that I didn't do graphing the first day back. Remember I said I was going to do graphing? I changed my mind. And the reason I changed my mind is because 10-3 is solving quadratic equations, but using what method? Factoring. And did you get your test back? How many of you did better than you thought you would have? Like you're like, oh wow, that's a nice. How many of you did as well as you thought you'd do? You're like, oh, I'm so glad I just pulled that out. And how many of you maybe didn't do as well as you wanted to? Okay? So listen, for those who did better, this is not the time to say, wow, I nailed that test and now who cares about it? Next topic. No, I'm going to need it today, which means I'm going to need it
tomorrow, sometime in high school.
Tuesday for the quiz and whenever that test comes up. But factoring, I don't know if this class did it, but I know the other class, they're asking me, Mr. Ray, why do we have to factor? Like, what's the point of factoring? And I didn't give them an answer because the answer was going to come in the next chapter. It comes up when we're dealing with quadratic equations. Now, if you haven't already written this down, please do so. The second part here, standard form of a quadratic equation. Okay, this is standard form. And do you notice that it's ax squared plus by plus, time out. I'm getting my forms mixed up from 7th grade. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Do you guys notice that 0 is by itself here on one side? You guys notice that? That's important. In fact, 0 is important in 3 properties that we're going to look at. And then here, I have some qualifications. How do you graph a quadratic equation? Does anyone remember? What shape does it take?
A squirrel. A squirrel.
We call that parabola. Okay, it could be a parabola this way, or it could be a parabola that opens upward. Okay, listen carefully. We looked at, I think it was 5 pieces of info for the parabola, and we haven't had to graph it ourselves. We're just looking at the parabola. But two of the parts we're going to look at today in particular, and you're going to see how all that factoring helps you to find one piece of info that's very, very useful. Okay, all right, we'll come back to this. Is this written in standard form? Is it written in the ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form? Yes, a, b, and c are real numbers. So that could be fractions, decimals, positives, negatives. They're all real numbers. And what can a not be? 0. Does anyone know why a should not be 0? Think about it. Think deeply. Okay, not the whole thing would be 0, but very close. If this is 0, what's 0 times x squared? 0, right? So you don't get this anymore. This goes away. And the definition of a quadratic expression or quadratic equation is that you have an exponent with the highest power of 2. So if you eliminated that, it can't be a quadratic, so that kind of defeats the purpose if a equals 0. So it doesn't equal 0. A does not equal 0. Okay, here, what's a? 1. What's b? What's c? Good, negative 20. So you guys can identify those parts. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is a parabola. We are graphing this tomorrow. Today what I want to find out is what does x equal in this equation. So what I want you to do is this. If it's written standard form, what kind of polynomial is that? Trinomial. Do you guys remember how to factor a trinomial? Okay, perfect square trinomial. Is it a perfect square? Is it a yes, yes, yes? No. What's the lead coefficient of this? 1. So you go to this method. You just write down the 2 sets of parentheses, you put an x in each spot. What are 2 numbers that multiply to get me negative 20 that add up to be 1?
Negative Positive 5.
Positive 5, negative 4. Those are the only two. That's it. No, there's no other variety. Those are the only integers. And that still equals 0. And you're like, okay, I factored it, but I'm not seeing where you're going here. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to skip to the next screen and come back to this one in just a moment. That's not what I wanted. Okay, I want you to write this down. The zero product property. The zero product property. This is a property that's going to be applied today. It's very deep, so please listen carefully. If you're not following, you're going to be like, wait, what is he talking about? Here's the property. If AB, what's going on between AB? The B multiplied. If AB equals 0, then, I'm going to fill it in after I ask you a couple questions. If there are two numbers that are multiplied together and they equal 0, what does one of the numbers have to be? 0, okay? The first number can be 0. The second number can be 0, or technically, both of them can be 0. So if A, B equals 0, then A or B equal 0. That's the zero product property. That's how basic it is today. Oh, wait, yeah. It's both deep and basic. Okay, how many of you get this? This is a shallow, basic, I get two numbers multiplied together, give me 0. One of them has to be 0. You get that? Okay, let's apply it a little bit deeper. I'm going to go back. Okay, are these two being multiplied? Hold on. Are these two being multiplied? Do they equal 0? We can apply the zero product property. That means that x plus 5 or x minus 4 have to equal 0. They have to equal 0. And you're like, wait, what's going on? Just write this down. X plus 5 equals 0, right? Because that has to equal 0. Or x minus 4 has to equal 0. That has to equal 0. What would x be in this equation right here? How do you solve for x? Subtract 5 from both sides? Does that sound familiar? Okay. Some of you are giving me some weird looks like I've never seen this in my life. You've seen it now for 2 years. 4 years, sorry. You've seen it for 4 years. If x equals negative 5, what's negative 5 plus 5? 0. Thank you. Are they alive? I turn around. Are they going to be all eyes closed? Okay. How do I solve for x over here? I add 4 to both sides. What does that give me? X equals 4. Oh, well, hold on. What's 4 minus 4? 0. Okay. Now let me show you what the point of this is, because you're like, where did this all come from? Okay. How many solutions am I saying are part of this equation? How many solutions? 2. Here's a little rule of thumb for algebra. When your highest power is 2, you're going to have up to 2 solutions. If your highest power is 3, how many solutions could you have? 3. Up to 3. If you have 4, how many solutions could you have? 4. That's a general rule. That just doesn't look right to me. Ready? On all these problems, you should check your solutions. Ready? I'm going to check this guy right here. Is x really equal to negative 5? What's negative 5 squared? Positive 25. You agree with that? X equals negative 5, I said. So negative 5 minus 20. What's 25 minus 5? 20 minus 20?
0.
Does that check? It does. It does check. You're like, okay. So I know that one checks. What about 4? What's 4 squared? Plus 4? Minus 20? Also checks. That's not even the magical part. This is the cool thing. It's not even the magical part. So do they check? Do they check in the original? That means they work, that they're good. Do you guys remember when you were looking at your parabola? And I think I'm going to have to sketch this as best I can. Okay, this parabola automatically opens upward because it's a positive, right? And I know the x-intercepts. There are two of them. You know what the x-intercepts are?
4 and -5.
One hits right here at -5. One hits here at 4. It opens upward, so it does something like that. The parabola with the quadratic equation, they go hand in hand. That's going to be part of how I solve these, or how I graph these parabolas, is when I get the x-intercepts. How many of you remember how to get the x-intercepts? Just look at the x-axis, see where does it hit the x-axis, right there and there. Those are your x-intercepts. They go hand in hand. So, what's the purpose of factoring? One of the purposes, one, is to get the x-intercepts of a parabola. You're like, so? I asked my wife, or I told my wife that I'm really excited about this lesson. She's like, why? I said, because they could do these shapes. She says, oh, you mean those shapes? I go, yeah, those shapes. Where do you see those shapes?
In nature.
Everywhere. Ready?
Kobe.
Did you see that?
Gravity.
Parabola. Parabola. It went parabola. When my boys jump, when they're playing, they're jumping off the stairs, which they're not supposed to. Not all the stairs, just like the third stair, which is still bad for them, or jumping off the couch. What way are they traveling in? A parabola. When you drop something in a puddle of water, you know how those droplets are going to come out? As a parabola. Okay, guys, you may not care, and I hope you do because this is important. You may not care, or you may not even know, maybe you're just like not aware, but everything that we're looking at has some relationship with the parabola. And that means it's affecting me right now. Like right now, I'm thinking parabola. I'm like, whoa, parabolas everywhere. Now, don't get yourself too confused with that, but there are parabolas everywhere. And who put those parabolas into place? The Lord himself. It's not random, orderly. Things travel in this method. No, they don't. They travel in this method or that method. All right. Let's do another problem. Write this one down. This one's not as nice. Or is it?
That's easy. That's just.
Can you simplify it? Factor it? Yeah.
Huh? A lot of good opinions. I hear these. These are good. Okay, first of all, is this a quadratic equation? Is it an equation whose highest power of the exponent is 2? Yes. Right? X squared, that's the highest power. It's a quadratic. But is it written in standard form?
No.
It is.
Yeah.
Wait, you need X.
Is 0 on one side? Is 0 on one side? You're allowed to look. That's not 0 and that's not 0. How do I make 0 go on one side or the other? I think I heard it. Subtract 36 from both sides. Subtract 36. Because what's 36 minus 36? 0. That's 0 on one side. And then, can I combine these as one term? Nope. I'm just going to have to write it x squared minus 36. Great. Quadratic, but is it in standard form?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it in the ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form? Okay. Could you put a 0x in there and it fit right in between these two terms? Right here? Could you put one in there? Okay, you could. But guys, you don't have to. It is in standard form. This is standard form. Okay, what's A?
X squared.
What's A?
1.
1. What's B?
0.
0. Good. What's C? Good. Negative. It's in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. Now I can factor it. Okay, this is a binomial. Does anyone remember what's the only option you have for binomials? Factoring. Think of your chart. It's at the very top. Difference of 2 squares. Anyone know what those 2 squares are? X plus 6, x minus 6 equals 0. So, if these two are being multiplied and they equal 0, what does x plus 6 have to be? 0. What does x minus 6 have to be? 0. Can you solve those? And those you can do pretty quickly. What's x over here? Negative 6. What's x over here? Do they both work? What's negative 6 squared? What's 6 squared? They both work.
Yeah.
That was an easy one. That's a nice one. You guys get what process we're going through? Because we're going to do it again. And they're not always the things. Mr. A, I saw that and I knew the answer. Awesome. Do the same method here. Bless you, bless you. Try to just look at the problem and see if you can figure it out. Just look at it. Yeah, I got it. I'm like, man, you're good because I don't see it. I don't see the answer just looking at it. But I can get it if I go through my steps. Bless you. You're welcome. There you go.
Subtract a certain side. It could be either one.
Is one side equal to 0? No, so I got to get it there. Now, there are a couple ways you can do it, but notice there are already two terms on the right. Why don't I subtract 11x from both sides? Okay, what's 11x minus 11x? 0. Isn't that what I want on one side? Yep. And then how would I arrange these three terms? 2x squared minus 11x plus 14. Now you're like, Mr. A, that's not the same form. Could you, if you really need to, could you rewrite it? You would put 2x squared minus 11x plus 14 equals 0. It's the same thing. Okay. What I have to do now is I have to try to factor this. Perfect square trinomial, is it yes, yes, yes?
No.
I think it's a no, no, no. I think all three no's. What's the lead coefficient of x squared? 2. So can I just go through my little shortcut? I could. You could do bridge. How many of you know how to do bridge? Do your bridge. Do your bridge. How many of you rather look at the shortcut maybe? 1, 2. Okay. Do bridge, and if you need help, I'll try to work that one out with bridge. If you're doing the shortcut though, I know two numbers fit. 2x and x. Because what's 2x times x? 2x squared. So I know those have to go in there. Okay, what two factors of 14 fit in here, and you have to have the correct numbers with the correct sign in the correct order. So it's a guessing game until you get better at it. And some of you will get better. It just takes time. What are two factors of 14?
2, 7, 2.
Okay, 2 and 7. Now, should they both be positive?
Probably not.
Because I need a negative, right? So one should be positive, one should be negative. But which one should go where? Should it be negative 7 here, positive 2? Or positive 2, negative 7? Or negative 2, 7? Or whatever the other option was that I forget because I lost track of all those numbers. What should it be? Your choice. Pick. Go, go, go. Give me something.
Positive 2 and 7.
Right here, positive 2 and negative 7? Okay. What's 2 times negative 7? Negative 14. What's 2 times 1? Positive 2. Do these two add up to be negative 11? No, so it couldn't have been those. But you can try something else.
Positive 7, negative 2.
Okay, I heard positive 7, negative 2. What's 2 times negative 2?
Negative.
What's 7 times 1? Is that it?
No.
You guys are getting there.
No, positive 2, negative 7.
Like that?
Negative 7, negative 2.
Sorry, someone else gave it to me.
Negative 2, negative 7.
Negative 2, negative 7. I don't think we did both negatives. What's 2 times negative 7?
Negative 14.
What's negative 2 times 1? We're getting there. There's only there's one more to check.
7.
Okay, you can do 14-1. That's going to be too big. Just. Oh.
Negative 7, negative 2.
All right, what's 2 times negative 4? What's 7? Negative 7. Those two. Got it. Okay, I did this on purpose with you guys. Who did the bridge method? Who got it? You got those? Okay, do you notice it took us just as long to do the bridge, or maybe it probably took me longer, right? But what happens is you get better. So if you do the bridge method, I'm always going to be okay with that. But if you keep practicing the shortcut, you might get it. All right, but anyway, you should get these two no matter what. These two multiply to get me.
0.
So according to the zero product property, this one or this one have to equal 0. So either 2x minus 7 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. Please be careful with this problem. What do you do first to solve for x? You're allowed to speak.
Subtract.
You're going to add 7 to both sides. To add 7, you get 2x equals 7. What do you do last? Divide by 2. Sorry, because I'm getting into that. You get x equals 7 halves. On this one, it's not negative 7 halves. It's not 2 sevenths. It's not negative 2 sevenths. It's positive 7 halves. It has to be that. And then how do you solve for this one? Just add 2. You get x equals 2. Sorry.
Can I have your attention, please, regarding boys' golf tryouts? Golf tryouts are canceled today.
Or girls.
Please stop by the athletic center and pick up your clubs at dismissal. Again, golf tryouts for boys has been canceled today. Thank you.
I'll never make the team. All right. So what I want, yes, in just a moment, let me just do one thing. Both of these have to check. And this is what I'm going to do. Listen up. For those of you who want to take the opportunity, listen up. You don't. If you get these two answers and you put that in your homework as correct, great, you'll get the point. If you check these two and you find out, wait, this doesn't work, you would scratch it out. I'd give you a bonus point for that. You get it it's like you did a whole nother problem, you get it free. Or this one didn't check, you get a bonus point. Yes, sir? That's okay. I would put it in fractional form because it's easier to check. Because then you have to multiply decimals, and it's possible that, yeah, it's harder with the x squared part. So, yeah, halves. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, so I did the bridge method.
Awesome.
And I got x equals 7 and x equals 4. And, yeah.
Oh, so you got, you know what? This is what I did. Let's do this problem. Let's do the bridge on that one, and I'll show you how to do the bridge because you have to keep going further. All right, look at this problem here. Is it in standard form? Yes. It's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We're good. On your test, the only instruction I gave you, really, factor completely, which means some of you missed points for little things. You forgot that there's a GCF. What's the GCF on this left side? 2 is the GCF. What's left? 3x squared minus 7x minus 6. And that equals 0. Okay, factor the GCF. It makes your life easier because you're not dealing with big numbers. You're dealing with smaller numbers. Half the size of the first. Perfect square trinomial? No. What's the lead coefficient? 3. So what method do we use? I'm going to go with the bridge. So if some of you kind of struggled on the last problem. All right. What's 3 times negative 6? 18. Negative 18. What are 2 factors of negative 18 that add up to be negative 7? Negative 9, positive 2. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. The first term stays the same. And then I split negative 7x into negative 9x and positive 2x. Keep the last term. So this is review. I'm going through it again. So now I have negative 7x split up into these two. I'm showing those arrows because I showed that they got split up. What method can I use when I have 4 terms? Factor by grouping. What's the GCF of the first 2?
3x.
3x. What's left? X minus 3. What's the GCF of the second 2? Positive 2. What's left over? X minus 3. All right. What comes out of these two? X minus 3 and 3x plus 2. And something that happened on the test is we forgot the It's right there. It doesn't go away. It's 2. Okay.
What do you do when you do?
Okay, I'm going to show you here. How many numbers are being multiplied down here? 1, 2, 3. The zero product property says this. If 2 numbers are being multiplied and they get me 0, one of the numbers has to equal 0, right? But what happens when there's 3 numbers being multiplied and they equal 0? One of those numbers has to equal 0. It's the same thing. It just applies, expands here. Okay. Here's a does statement. I hope you get it. Can 2 equal 0? No, it cannot. So there's no solution here. No solution there. Can I find a solution with this one? You would get x minus 3 equals 0. So it's x in this one. Positive 3. Yeah, positive 3. Can you get a solution from this one? Well, 3x plus 2 equals 0. So how do you solve for x? You subtract 2 from both sides. Then you divide by 3. Yep. And you end up with x equals negative 2/3. Yeah, this one, if it were a variable, would have given you an answer, but it just gives me this weird 2 equals 0 stuff. That's not a solution. You don't use it. So you only use those 2. And do you guys remember? When your highest power is 2, how many possible answers could you have? Up to? 2. So notice I can have them.
So you only have 1.
2 right here. Sorry. Right here.
So you always have a number, say, like x prime. Like
Yes, yep. Sorry. You have up to that many.
So we have 1.
You can have 1. Or you can have 0.
This is hard.
I know. Tell me about it. Say that again?
Were our parents given an email?
For what?
Child.
My mom just needs to know to pick me up from college.
Just call your mom and look after class.
Not me. No, I really don't know. The best person to ask is Coach Martin after Miss Charlene. Yeah, so she might call him up because he's the AD. Okay, do this problem real quick. Athletic director, AD. Sorry. Is it in standard form?
Yeah.
Yep, that's nice. Consider that a blessing. You have to do less work on that one. Is it a perfect square trinomial?
Yeah.
Which means you can factor it immediately. It's going to be x
Plus 5. Or minus 5.
Remember that perfect square? What's the square root of x squared? It's x. What's the square root of 25? 5. And why do I put a minus? Because it's minus 10x. Yep. Okay, listen carefully. Jackie asked a good question. Mr. A, you can have 2 solutions, or 1 solution, or dare I say it? 0. It's possible. Okay, does anyone know what this actually means? It means x minus 5 times. Notice that was a bonus question. Okay, but anyway, what does x equal here? Yeah, x minus 5 equals 0. So what would x equal? 5. Wouldn't it be the same thing here? Do you think you need to repeat it? X equals 5, x equals 5? No, I mean, why would you repeat it if it's the same exact...
Number.
Yeah, it's just this. That's the only answer. X equals 5. How did I get that? X minus 5 equals 0, right? Or x minus 5 equals 0, which this seems really redundant. How do I solve for x? And if you've ever felt deja vu, how do you solve for x here? Oh wait, what do we get? The same thing, so just write it once. That's why I only wrote it once here. Does this answer check what's 5 squared? What's negative 10 times 5? Is that true?
It is. Is it? Yes. It has to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
One, two, three, four, 5. All right, listen up. You're going to need to know this tomorrow. Does it hit the x-axis? One time. Where? Does it open upward or downward?
Upward.
And where does it hit the x-axis? That's that parabola. What a cliffhanger. Oh. We're going to practice this more
In 2 hours.
Thursday.
I always get Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Me too.
Because they start with the same letter.
No, I got what you're saying. I just get it mixed up even if they start with different letters. That's my problem. Okay. Goodbye, swivel.
Oh, she's from the
Oh no.